Thank you very much indeed. Good morning, friends and colleagues. What an inspirational opening from the Prime Minister, and what a great pleasure for me to be able to follow Katrin Jakobsdottir, who has provided such incredible international leadership on the subject that we are talking about today, the well-being economy. Just a few reflections on what she had to say. Happiness should be the overriding priority for their people as a principle for politicians to follow. I absolutely agree. I think that is absolutely right. I have to say I was a bit nervous when Brynja suggested that how important laughter was to happiness, and that we would be expected to contribute to this laughter this morning. I'm very grateful for the fact that we actually have comedians in the room that can do that job for us. My children would emphasise that point, that laughter is not something that I am good at generating. I've confounded that theory from my children. I'll need to let them know that. The second element was the importance of us taking our international responsibilities seriously and our progress on the SDGs. As a former International Development Minister in Scotland, I absolutely concur. I think it is critically important that our well-being is not just isolated to our individual nations, but that we are ensuring that collective well-being globally is reflected, and that we are taking our responsibilities very seriously, as Katrin rightly said, have done the most to contribute to the climate emergency, take the greatest responsibility for it. And the cost of not acting on the climate emergency being far greater than choosing to act. In Scotland, I am trying to emphasise the huge economic opportunity that there actually is on our net zero journey, and the opportunity that there is for business, for us collectively in Scotland to be investing in our green industrial revolution and to be ensuring that we have a just transition from oil and gas is a massive economic opportunity if we can get it right, but we must learn from one another internationally to ensure that we can do so, which is why conferences like this are so important. And finally, on gender equality. As the father of a son and 3 daughters, that is something particularly important to me personally, but also the progress that we're making in Scotland on gender equality, led by the former First Minister Nicola Sturgeon, has been incredibly important. Again, one of the greatest economic opportunities that we have globally is if we end the gender pay gap and the gender employment gap. So it's of fundamental importance that we continue to make progress on those fronts. So it is a great pleasure to join you here today in Reykjavik, not just because of the natural beauty of Iceland and the warm, open-armed welcome that we have had since we arrived yesterday, but to be here for this event in particular. The first Wellbeing Economy Forum is fantastic because it shows the progress that is being made on the wellbeing economy agenda internationally. As Scotland's first Cabinet Secretary for the Wellbeing Economy, Fair Work and Energy in the Scottish Government, it is particularly fitting that we are here in Iceland to discuss these important matters. Scotland shares deep cultural and historic ties with Iceland, and we continue to have so much in common with each other, not least our long-standing commitment to the idea of a wellbeing economy. I feel I have a particular affinity with Iceland as well. I was speaking to the Prime Minister before we came on stage and reflecting on the fact that I'm originally from Orkney. So we have shared Nordic roots. Viking blood runs through me as it does you here in Iceland. And I will get the Prime Minister to Orkney. She's been to Shetland. She's not been to Orkney. I think we need to make progress on that front. There's no competitiveness between Orkney Islands and Scotland. Indeed, Scotland and Iceland, along with New Zealand, were founding members of WeGo, the network of wellbeing economy governments, which was established in 2018. So being here with you all today, not only to consider the progress we've made, but what more we can do, feels monumental, and I'm looking forward to the discussions over the coming days. Across the world, we are seeing the impacts of the intertwined challenges of climate, nature and inequality, and we must now recognise that a paradigm shift is essential to build resilient economies around the world. The wellbeing economy provides an alternative, refreshed and modern vision for our economy, one that prioritises the environmental, social and economic well-being of our people and communities, both now and for the future. It's no longer enough to measure success solely by GDP growth. Instead, we must pursue transformative measures that support the well-being of our people and of our environment. For Scotland, economic success means making the most of our incredibly rich resources that we have, using that to build a fairer, greener and growing economy that works for the people and the planet, not the other way around. Economic activity should serve a purpose. It should be a sustainable means to improved health and well-being, rather simply an end in itself. The Wellbeing Economy Framework calls upon us to assess progress through the lens of human happiness, social cohesion, and environmental stewardship. It empowers us in government to craft policies and design systems that prioritise fairness, inclusivity, and the sustainable use of resources. By linking well-being and sustainability, we create a virtuous cycle that ensures our actions today safeguard the prosperity, needs, and aspirations of future generations. So the Wellbeing Economy agenda recognises the need for wholesale system change, and that the economy doesn't exist separately to our social aims and our environmental objectives. They are interdependent. So while my role is focused on the economic contribution to a wellbeing economy, I recognise that our approach must be holistic. It is clear why the principles of a wellbeing economy are good for society and our environment, but it may be less clear why it is also good for business. However, put simply, the research shows businesses that consider and prioritise the collective well-being of people and the environment now and in the future are more successful and more resilient in times of crisis, with further payoffs from increases in innovation, long-term profitability, productivity and growth. So that's why, in developing this as a mainstream approach, we need to engage with all participants, particularly businesses, so that they understand their role and contribution, but also how it benefits their sustainability and competitiveness. And one of the ways we are doing this is we've set up a New Deal for Business group to deepen our links with government and business. The group is focused on 4 areas: economic conditions and performance, ensuring the best environment to do business and support innovation, and the transition to a wellbeing economy. One of the key aims of the group is to develop a shared understanding of the role of business in that transition. For example, recognising the importance of fair work that the Prime Minister referenced, and pay, secure employment, supporting participation and inclusion, and working in partnership with communities to drive change. The challenge for all of us is to broaden awareness with business and other stakeholders across the piece, highlighting the benefits of putting well-being at the forefront of our thinking and orchestrating the change we want and need to see. It's no secret that we face big challenges. In Scotland, a number of factors have led to the cost crisis, with persistent high inflation, soaring energy costs and unprecedented drops in living standards. These challenges, however, bring opportunities to do things differently. Energy markets have been a key driver of the cost crisis, impacting on living standards at the same time as delivering major profits for energy companies. This is a key example of why we need to shift our focus away from traditional metrics of success and take a broader view of what it means to be a successful economy, putting people and planet at its core. Our national strategy for economic transformation has a vision that Scotland will be recognised at home and throughout the world as an international benchmark for how an economy can transform itself, decarbonise and rebuild natural capital. The just transition to net zero is an opportunity to create new jobs, businesses, and open up markets in new sectors, as well as supporting the transition of existing sectors in a way that has fairness and equality built in. Developments of offshore wind can help to achieve that just transition to net zero, decarbonise our energy system and create good quality green jobs, providing energy security for our country. It is also one of the lowest forms of electricity generation at scale, offering cheap green electricity for consumers. The ScotWind offshore wind leasing round has delivered over £750 million in revenues to the public purse and will bring billions of pounds of investment into the Scottish supply chain and wider economy. So our vast renewables potential means Scotland is well placed to become a competitive producer of reliable, competitive, sustainable and low-cost renewable hydrogen. And our Hydrogen Action Plan will put us on the path to becoming a leading hydrogen nation with maximum economic benefit and jobs derived from renewable hydrogen production for domestic use and export. The skills of our people and companies that know how to produce, manage and compress, transport, store and reconstitute gas will be needed. Many of these skills and the supply chain requirements for future hydrogen systems and infrastructures are to be found in our oil and gas sector today. It highlights how important it is that we pursue a just transition. Doing so will undoubtedly have a positive impact on the well-being of our people. And our draft Just Transition plans, due to be published alongside the draft Climate Change Plan this autumn, will set out concrete actions and roadmaps of how we will capture these opportunities. Creating a wellbeing economy is a defining mission for the Scottish Government. Our National Strategy for Economic Transformation is the first economic strategy we have published which explicitly emphasises well-being and recognises that we will only achieve that by having an economy which is sustainable, which benefits people and which is consistent with our environmental aims. But of course, it is just one example of us taking this new approach. I've just spoken about the challenges and opportunities of the transition to net zero, and our Just Transition Commission is the first of its kind anywhere in the world. It has a central role in guiding Scotland's move to a net zero climate resilient economy in a way which prioritises people, employment and communities. Shortly after taking up the post, I convened a wellbeing economy expert advisory group, which its purpose is to provide guidance on developing a wellbeing economy. And I'm looking forward to meeting them again in the coming weeks, some of whom are actually in the audience this afternoon. Scotland's world-leading National Performance Framework also takes a much broader view of what an economy is actually for. It outlines our focus on creating a more successful country with opportunities for all of Scotland to flourish throughout increased well-being and sustainable and inclusive economic growth. Developed through our extensive public engagement and reviewed every 5 years, it sets out national outcomes that describe the kind of Scotland we aim to create. These outcomes cover the environment, social justice, health, community safety, education, fair work, tackling poverty and internationalisation. We have also established a new centre of expertise in equality and human rights within the Scottish Government, which aims to embed equality and human rights in economic policy making. And like Iceland, we are holding ourselves accountable on progress. Our Wellbeing Economy Monitor tracks broader economic outcomes beyond traditional metrics like GDP and helps us assess Scotland's progress in creating a wellbeing economy. So we're taking important action at a national and international level, but we also know it's essential for wellbeing approaches to be taken forward locally. Our Wellbeing Economy Toolkit provides a guide for our local authorities who provide a range of services at a more regional level in Scotland to view the economy, the wellbeing economy, as a system and to develop local strategies focused on wellbeing outcomes. Our approach was informed by our local wellbeing economy pilot project to identify the key drivers of wellbeing outcomes and how they interconnect, as well as the interventions that would have the most impact. And as a key practical approach to developing place-based wellbeing economies, we are working closely with our local authorities on community wealth building, which gives communities more power to shape their own economic development. And we are currently consulting on legislation that will make it easier to implement that model across Scotland. However, we are aware of the challenges ahead. The transition to a wellbeing economy requires us to confront entrenched systems, to challenge conventional wisdom and to foster new forms of collaboration between governments, businesses and wider society. It's through forums like this that we share our experiences, exchange ideas and forge partnerships that will drive our shared vision forward. Together, we have the power to shape sustainable wellbeing economies and to ensure that wellbeing becomes the guiding principles of governments around the world. I recently spoke at the World Health Organization Small Countries Initiative high-level meeting, which was a fantastic opportunity to highlight our work in the wellbeing economy to other government officials. And it goes without saying that one of our key forums is the WeGo network. The combined efforts of Scotland, Iceland, New Zealand, Finland and Wales, as well as Canada, who are engaging closely with us, have been a real driver of our success to date. And all the members are continuing to work with and learn from one another from further engagement with organisations around the world. Scotland is determined to build on this kind of engagement and strengthen the network further. That's why we've committed to appointing a dedicated wellbeing economy ambassador whose role it will be to promote the vision of a wellbeing economy internationally, sharing and highlighting experience and expertise and advancing the wellbeing agenda at home and abroad. So I would just, you'll be relieved to know I'll be bringing my remarks to a conclusion and just like to end once more by thanking our Icelandic friends for hosting us today, pay tribute to the vital role that they have played and continue to play in furthering the wellbeing economy agenda. The fact that we are here today is testament to the hard work and progress that has been made bringing these issues to the forefront and seeing so many people from such diverse backgrounds, but with a shared goal of advancing sustainability and well-being is truly inspiring. But it is only the beginning, and the diversity is what is needed to achieve this. We in government have a huge part to play, but we cannot do this alone. This needs buy-in from all parts of society and all corners of the world. And it is vital that we raise awareness of the benefits of the wellbeing economy to a broader range of stakeholders, particularly business, so that the change we are seeking comes to fruition. Success is dependent on our interlinked economic, social, environmental objectives being achieved as one. This forum has shown there is a will and a way, and real progress is being made. That is why it's important that we keep up the momentum to keep having these discussions, sharing best practice and collaborating. Let's continue to work together to put well-being at the centre of what we do and make it the measure by which we judge our success. Thank you very much.